great. Okay. It's the 20th of May, and this is the doc meeting. And I need a roll call.
Okay, let me do that.
Oh, yeah.
Director Bragman is not here. Director Gibson,
Here.
Director Kohler is not here. Director Russell is not here.
No,
I'm
Russell's
sorry,
here.
Director
Russell's here.
Russell's here. Sorry, Director Russell.
Yeah, here.
I'm not as practiced at this as Terry. And Director Schmidt's not here. That's the roll call.
Okay,
We do
great.
have two for a committee.
Okay. I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Move approval.
Second,
Second.
roll call. I
Uh,
don't think you can second your own motion, Jack.
I think we'll,
Yeah.
Director Gibson and Director Russell. I
Yes,
think we'll take that as an adopting the agenda.
that works for me. Okay, public
Okay.
comment on any items not on the agenda?
I'm not seeing any hands raised this morning.
Okay, cool. Let's move on. I need a motion to adopt the minutes from the last meeting.
So moved. No.
Second,
Do we want to go ahead and roll those to the next?
Yeah, I'm not, there's a technical question, but I'm not sure we can do that. You know, I mean, it's a formal.
Right.
Yeah.
Since I think it'd probably be a good idea just to roll that to the next meeting, if that's okay with you guys.
Okay.
yeah, of course. Okay, number 2, AMI update.
Good morning, directors. We have a presentation for you today on our progress in designing and developing AMI for the water district.
Cool.
Good morning. I'm Kristen Arnold, engineer in planning. I'm going to present the AMI implementation plan update today. Thank you. I'll start by reviewing background on what AMI is, why it's beneficial, and the district's journey through AMI thus far. So what is AMI? From a customer's perspective, AMI is an educational tool to provide further opportunities to use water wisely. From a more technical standpoint, it's a combination of hardware, software, and telecommunication network that all work together to read meters and send the data to the district and its customers in real time. As you can see from this graphic, there's hardware at each of the customer's locations, and the data is sent through a network, usually radio or cellular. It's sent to the district, and then software then will forward that data on to customers. The district currently uses conventional meter reading practices, meaning that out of the district's 62,620 meters, staff physically reads over 55,600 meters every other month. This conventional method provides customers with their water usage 6 times a year. With AMI, customers will have real-time information about water usage. Now I'll dive into some of the benefits of investing in AMI. AMI fits into the district's goal of advancing water efficiency by contributing to demand reduction. One of the ways reduction can occur is by providing customers with access to their real-time data through an AMI data portal, also known as a customer portal. A 2022 AWWA study found that when customers sign up for a data portal, there was an average decrease of 6 to 12% in their daily water usage, and that's about 5 to 9 gallons per day. Additionally, the data portal allows customers to enable notifications for things like leaks and high usage. And as the board saw last Tuesday in the water supply workshop, 22% of winter water usage is going towards outdoor use. So notifications could be set up to remind customers not to water 48 hours following storm events and to turn off irrigation systems in the winter.
But, also, Kristen, don't we need to remind them to install the rain shutoffs? I mean, our ordinance requires a rain shutoff on a controller. that should do that automatically.
Okay. So another huge benefit to AMI is timely leak detection. The district's been able to prove this through our AMI pilot program. The pilot program has about 5,000 AMI meters installed, which is about 8% of all district meters. Staff analyzed the pilot program data to estimate an annual leak detection savings for system-wide AMI. The analysis started by reviewing leak data for 2020 and 2021. In 2020, the pilot program caught 28 large leaks and 1,243 small leaks, saving about 87 acre-feet that year. In 2021, the program caught 210 large leaks and almost 1,050 small leaks, saving about 216 acre-feet. So you can sort of see the savings visually in this graphic. A leak started in early November. It was caught quickly by AMI and fixed by the customer, resulting in a savings of about 630,000 gallons of water, which was almost 2 acre-feet. So staff extrapolated this leak data to the whole system and estimated that the district could save about 500 acre-feet per year from leak detection functions in AMI. This might seem a little low compared to the 216 acre-feet shown for 2021, but staff took into account that the pilot program really focused on our highest water users.
Yeah, if I could, Kristen, so the calculation for the saving was based on the fact that they wouldn't see a water bill for 60 days. So it's not a whole year of leakage. It's just this calculated savings on the fact that they wouldn't get a water bill for a couple of months. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. So the last benefit I'll discuss is kind of an unexpected one, and that's that AMI can be a useful tool during emergencies and disasters such as earthquakes, fires, and landslides. AMI can show where there are breaks between laterals and houses and can assist the district with responding to emergency situations by pinpointing specific locations in the system. To go through a quick roadmap of where we've been and where we're going. So through 2019, we got the pilot program up and running through grant funding. In 2020, an AMI feasibility study was performed. In 2022, we began the implementation plan. And in 2023, we anticipate going into contract development and selecting a vendor, and we anticipate starting construction in 2024. So transitioning from conventional meter reading to AMI is a district-wide effort, and it requires cooperation between multiple departments, such as customer service and billing, the meter shop, water efficiency, operations, and engineering. These departments have been collaborating to start a system-wide upgrade to AMI. Staff determined that a three-phase approach to AMI would benefit the district. So the first phase is the implementation plan. Staff entered into a professional services agreement with eSource in December 2021 to develop the plan. There are 5 main tasks, which I'll go into more detail about next. The second phase is to develop RFPs and go through vendor selection. And the third phase would be the installation of the system-wide AMI. So to dive into the main topic for today, it's the implementation plan. The first task was the current system assessment, which involved eSource reviewing and meeting with staff to discuss the policies and practices involving billing, customer service, meter reading, finance, engineering, operations, water efficiency, and IT. Additionally, eSource hosted a meeting to educate staff on technology and state of the industry. They developed an architecture diagram for data and software integration, and they assisted the district in developing AMI goals. Our top goals are to utilize data to support conservation programs, provide timely leak notifications to customers, and enhance customer engagement through the data portal. The main takeaways from the technology review are that a majority of AMI's value is from the data. The data provides the ability to detect leaks and notify customers, increase water conservation, and provides early error alerts such as broken meter or dead battery, and tamper alerts, which often are not found until the next billing cycle. The data really allows the district to streamline these benefits to the customers. The technology review also provided a detailed understanding of the AMI system components. AMI is not strictly a meter replacement project. It's an enterprise technology upgrade program, meaning you're also getting the hardware and software infrastructure to manage the data, use the data for billing, and share data with customers. This is done through a combination of meters, a meter data management system, and a customer engagement portal. So I know there's a lot on this diagram. I'm not going to go through it in detail, and it's not meant to be understood right now. The purpose of sharing this is to show that implementing AMI touches all departments of the organization, and that there are many different ancillary systems that need to go into implementing AMI, as well as optimization and refinement of our current work practices. The diagram shows that we have developed a working group to support this organizational-wide effort and the robust analysis going into the implementation plan. Second task is the financial analysis, which is still ongoing. The capital cost estimate is being developed, but will be in the range of 20 to 25 million. The estimate will include everything from meter equipment, network infrastructure, labor, hardware, to software integration. We're in the process of reviewing the financial benefits of system-wide AMI, which include improving billing accuracy, water loss conservation, reducing leak adjustments, eliminating rereads, and move out in reads. The initial analysis shows a payback in 14 to 15 years. Staff is also working on incorporating the benefits of conservation into the model. As we've discussed, when a leak is detected early with AMI, there's a benefit to saving that water. There's also benefits of demand reduction in conserving the district's existing supply. It's challenging to put a price on conservation, but we're working on how to include this benefit into the financial analysis. For the third task, eSource facilitated a business process assessment meeting to identify the day-to-day business processes that will be affected by the AMI project. The main goals of this assessment were to ensure the district knows what to expect and know where changes will occur. The assessment reviewed operational impacts for the areas you see listed here. For billing, that's fewer estimated bills and eliminating rereads. Customer service will have access to more customer data to assist with high bill questions and leak detection questions. Meter reading will go from reading meters every other month to once a year for annual maintenance. And we'll have new meter-related tasks such as investigating tampering and low battery alerts. Water efficiency will have additional data and tools to enhance customer service, enhance conservation. The district will also gain new technology that needs to be managed, such as the meter data management system and the customer portal. The remaining tasks for the implementation plan are to complete the financial analysis and the implementation schedule. The implementation schedule is for the full system-wide installation, which is expected to take 3 years. Year one is an initial deployment phase where about 1,000 meters are installed and all the hardware and software will be set up, integrated, and tested. This gets a small system up and running before the mass meter replacements start in year 2 and 3. The final implementation report will compile all the components developed in the previous tasks. So the report will include all the costs and benefits of installing AMI. And the report will also include preliminary specifications on preferred network design, assets and installation, and hardware and software recommendations. So the next steps for AMI as a whole are to complete the implementation plan, develop the AMI specifications and the RFP. We're looking into pursuing grant funding and planning on applying for a $5 million Water Smart grant, which will require matching funds from the district. And we need to confirm relative priority and funding before releasing an RFP and selecting a vendor to implement AMI. That's it.
Okay, you're done?
Yes.
Okay. I have 50 questions, so might as well get started. I don't quite follow the logic of, if I understood you correctly, the plan is to abandon the existing AMI and replace it all?
Potentially. It really depends on what vendor we end up going with. And it also depends on the age of the meters that are currently installed.
Well, the meters are a separate issue, huh? I mean, I know all about this, okay? I met with all the AMI guys, and I know that most of the savings comes from replacing the meters because it improves their accuracy, because they're set to overcharge when they begin and so forth and so on, and they wear down. I got all that. But I thought we were going a little different route. I thought we were talking more about just retrofitting the existing meters, sticking with the census and going through that. Are we not going to apply constraints like that to the RFP?
If I could, Director Russell, we are looking at the age of all the meters in our asset inventory.
Sure.
And we are making actual financial calculations on which meters would need to be replaced versus ones that are newer that would not be replaced. So that's all part of the financial analysis.
Are you thinking, Crystal, of actually going out, pulling meters and checking their performance and then seeing where we are, or is it just age?
Yeah, they did it based on age, whether the meter is 10 years old versus 15 years old. They made assumptions on whether or not the meter would need to be replaced.
Yeah, I'm just asking that maybe there should be a little more science to that than the tummy rubbing of how old it is to see how accurate it is.
Okay.
Something to think about.
Good
I'm not, not proposing one way or the other, just something to think about is get some hard data on the meters, because I know that's the biggest pitch the AMI guys make, which is the real benefit is changing all the meters. And then to that end, do we have a feel for what percentage of that 20 to 25 million is hard costs, like meters, versus labor to replace the meters or integrate them? Have we got that far yet? Or
Yeah.
And
the meters and then the hardware that is installed at the meters, like the endpoints, that accounts for about 18 million.
Yeah, the consultants have looked at the labor to install the meters, how many crews, how many hours it takes. They've done those calculations for labor charges, yes.
And is that something we would do in-house, or we'd send it out?
Currently, it's we would contract that work out.
One thing that I'm having a little trouble swallowing is I understand what you're saying, but the fact that we already have over 5,000 meters operating, it seems to me that would tend to push us in a certain direction. And the thinking is to not go with a cell phone data collection.
Yeah, there's pros and cons of both technologies, cell phone versus
Sure.
radio. As you know, we have dead zones where cell phone
Yeah,
won't
sure,
work.
sure.
And radio, we would save money because the cost of cell phones has basically a text message. You're paying a cell phone bill every year, which is added cost, versus radio is cheaper to do the transmissions. Of course, you have to purchase an FCC license or jump on somebody else's FCC license for the data transfer on radio. But all of that is being analyzed, and there will be a section in the implementation plan discussing the pros and cons of each technology choice. And at this point, we're thinking about when we go out to bid with the vendor contracts, so we would actually still keep it open. And based on the vendor's proposals, we might get some deals where they say, oh, we're not going to charge you a cell phone bill for 10 years. We've seen vendors throw in benefits of one technology to the other to try to offset some of those costs. So it might be that, a particular vendor offers some sort of benefit or buyback that's going to be more beneficial to the district. So we're still open to either technology.
Does that mean that the current vendor could take a discount on the number of meters and say, we already have 5,000 out there, so we only need to provide 55,000 instead of 5,000, instead of 60,000?
Yeah, that could be possible in their bid, right? So
Yeah. That's interesting.
How many,
Go ahead, Jack.
how many meter readers do we have right now?
good question.
I believe it's 8.
8? And we're talking about over a 3-year period, not needing them anymore. Do we have a transition plan? I mean, or have we thought about, what do we do about those 8 employees and, thinking about some sort of transition through that period?
Yeah, so our meter readers also do meter repairs. It was that task used to be in the maintenance group, but now meter readers actually do meter change outs and repairs and shut offs. So that work would still need to continue. And what we've seen in other agencies, other districts that have moved to AMI is oftentimes through attrition, you may get rid of a couple positions, but also a number of the positions ultimately would get converted to data analysts, because we're going to now have all this data that we're going to want to be able to do notifications with. And so it could be that as people retire, we would reclassify the position to a data analyst of some sort.
It's a really good question, Director Gibson. And I think building on what Crystal said is, as we move forward, we do need specifically, and when we would be moving into an RFP, we could bring to the board, and we should, more details on the transition plan. We do get kind of a high level of turnover in maintenance labor, our field folks, so some would likely transition as positions open there, as well as analysts, but also certainly we'll need some core to do the routine maintenance on these systems, even though we won't have the meter reads. So definitely a reduced workload, but some of it will be shift and some will take advantage of openings throughout the organization.
Mm-hmm. And how about the reaction from the public? This seems to me a pretty obvious benefit to all of our customers, but nevertheless, have you seen any evidence of resistance from the public for any reason? Or I assume there's no cost to the public when we do this, other than this. I think you talked about cell phone costs.
Well, what we've heard over time, 2 concerns. One, I think maybe more of a legacy issue with the new technology in terms of concerns with the radio or cell signals, because it's very discrete and low level, and we'll be able to explain that were that to come up again. The other more recent issue we've heard is kind of like Big Brother-ish kind of concerns where really, I believe as we start talking about this more and explaining it, the public largely is going to appreciate the value that this sort of system brings them in terms of leak detection, which is really huge, as you saw the percent of leaks that we find, as well as just real-time understanding of how best to manage water and what their own drivers are in terms of their own usage. So I think it's something new, and that always causes or often consternation initially, but I think it's something we'll be able to work through.
Okay, should we be, and maybe we are, right now embarking on some sort of public education, letting people know this is coming, and more information out there to sort of increase the comfort level on those issues.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Adrian's on vacation today, but we'll talk to her as this moves forward, developing strategies and learning what other agencies have done, because others have faced these concerns as well during the implementation phase and how they were able to work through those.
Right, and on that issue, I'm under the impression that we're sort of behind the curve here in coming up with this technology. I'm under the impression most districts have it pretty well in place. Am I wrong about that?
I'd say it's certainly a wave that's of technology that's moving through the industry. I don't know yet. It's most. I don't know if Kristen or Crystal, you have numerics, or Alicia, of where the industry is, but it's moving quickly through. But in the Bay Area, for example, we know North Marin had done it recently. I know East Bay Mud is looking at implementation. I don't know where the others are. Do you know where Contra Costa Water is or anything like that? But it certainly, if a water utility has not implemented this yet, they're certainly looking at it. There's no one that is not looking at some scheduled implementation of this. I'd say in the next 10 years, you're either done it or you're in some phase of assessment or implementation.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Seems to me that we should be talking heavily to our friends at North Marin to find out, well, one, what system are they using? Do we know offhand who North Marin is using?
We do know, but I don't know right this moment. We have talked to them.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And are they using cell phone or radio?
Again, I'd have to get back to you.
Because they have very similar
Can I get
conditions
a
to
quick-
us.
Can I get a quick comment in, because I'm going to get hustled out of here pretty soon.
Go ahead, Larry.
We went through a transition to smart meters in Fairfax, and we got a lot of pushback. So I think the privacy issue is huge, and we've got to build privacy into the system. That's really, really critical. It can't be bolted onto the system. So any system that we're looking at needs to have that integrated into the system, hardwired into the system. The other thing I was going to mention, and I'm on my way out, Sebastopol just implemented an AMI program, and I looked at the minutes of the meetings from Sebastopol, and I think it would be worthwhile for staff to do the same. You can get a preview of the concerns that are out there in the community. So I can actually, once I get settled, I can probably find the link and send it to you guys, because I think it will be instructive just to kind of preview the concerns that are out there. And the radio system in particular, I think, is going to raise concerns about, the RFI exposure. There were even questions about using the cell phone system about RFI. So that's it for me. I appreciate getting let into the meeting, and I think I'm going to get carted out of here pretty soon. So I think I'm going to have to leave.
You're not in any danger, are you?
I'm in Poughkeepsie, the train station in Poughkeepsie, New York. So
okay.
If you need someone to bail you out, just let us know.
Yeah.
no, I've got a ride I've got to go to. All right. Well, thanks a lot. And
Okay, great.
I'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Attending. So I think that's a very good comment about Sebastopol. what it appears to me is that it's mostly smaller water districts that have adapted this. You know, while the unit cost is similar, the hit is less. You know, North Marin's what, 1/5 our size, but I find it interesting. I was a little surprised. I was reading about them the other day that they have 60 tanks, and that caught me off guard that they would have that many tanks. Which, you know, makes them similar to us. We have like 140. So it's similar in the sense that that means they have a lot of hills that they're dealing with, which is the issue that Crystal was talking about with cell phones. So that's an interesting one. But yeah, I think we should have some kind of a summary, a fairly detailed summary of our Bay Area neighbors. And I think Larry's comments were excellent on listening to the Sebastopol meetings. I'm not quite sure what he's talking about when he says privacy. I mean, all this information is confidential. I don't know if they're talking about people intercepting it, which I don't think is very likely, or they're talking about people using the data in some way that compromises privacy. So I couldn't quite follow the logic of that. I was about to say that I've only heard Mimi Ward talk about that issue so far. But I guess maybe it's wider spread than I thought it was. So maybe we could get a direct address of that issue, Ben, in the not too distant future on what, well, I think first of all, ask Larry what he means by privacy.
Well, that issue has, every time we've talked about this in the past, that issue has come up, you know, so I mean, it's not necessarily my opinion. It's not necessarily based on technical knowledge or the science of it or anything like that. It's just a concern that we have to deal with.
What do you think it means, Jack? Do you have an idea what they're talking about?
Well,
what do the word?
The people have the same concern on all kinds of technology that's inside your house. Is it a way for people from the outside to access to what's going on, to, you know, privacy? It's the internet concept, you know, so it's not.
Okay, well, I just curious because like I say, it doesn't make any sense to me just offhand by the definition of privacy.
Because you know a lot more about the technical of it. Most people don't.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And your point was excellent that we do need a strategy to tell people where we're coming from and what we see happening so that, you know, and probably we need a workshop, Ben. I think
we're going to face the problem. And so what we have now is an opportunity to be prepared for it, to deal with it in advance and have a strategy.
Sure. And we also have our friends at PG&E, you know, who have been through this with the smart electric and gas meters.
Yep. Exactly.
It's the same group of people we're talking about.
Exactly right. Yeah.
So yeah, those would be good things. So I think, you know, this is definitely an issue where we need to collect as much information as possible to have answers instead of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I guess we're in a situation where we just need to give this a little more thought. What is the date for the final report to come out, or at least the draft to come to us?
End of June, we're targeting.
Oh, pretty soon. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And then Ben, I think we should be seriously talking. Well, I guess if we're implementing over 3 years, that creates kind of an interesting situation with Jack's question about the current meter readers, because they're still having to meter read during the 3 years.
Right.
We can't read the ones we don't have. So it's kind of, that's still ongoing. I was just wondering if there's a way to integrate them into the installation crew, like, you know, have, I think a very interesting question is, what's the driver for the speed of the conversion?
Yeah, so this analysis and report will be done in June. As staff noted, we are interested to pursue grant funding, and those answers are going to take a while. I would look at, you know, a large grant as kind of being the impetus, the trigger to start moving this forward. So we want to be prepared. but not move too quickly in advance of the grant and funding opportunities as well as the outreach. So even though my point is, even though this report's being done by June or so, I don't expect we're going to kick things off immediately following that. We'll be talking to the board, looking at funding, looking at outreach, and have these conversations with our community.
Well, that was my exact next question was, should we be looking at doing a bond in the near future to start paying for this? And I don't know, do you pay on delivery with this kind of thing? I mean, obviously it's all negotiable, but is it normal that you buy them up front and then we have them in a warehouse and we put them in, or do we buy them over time?
Usually, for storage purposes, you won't buy all the meters at the beginning. You'll buy them somewhat as the project goes along in chunks.
But how do you pay for them? Do you pay for them up front, or do you pay for them as you receive them? When do we need the funds is what I'm asking.
Well, I think that's Alicia here. I think that's dependent upon, the contract, like you said, it's all negotiable. And then
Sure.
Also the type of funding that you have, the type of grant that we're applying for right now would require matching funds. So those funds would need to be made available upon acceptance of the grant. So whether it is pay upfront or pay as you go, if the grant has certain stipulations in it, we're going to need to be able to provide that requirement at that time.
Is it likely that a grant would have things like Buy American clauses in it?
It's possible.
But that might be a little tricky with some of
could
these
be.
companies. Yeah. I think the other thing is we need to be pretty careful about the lead content of the meters. I know the industry is pushing for the 0.25%, but I have been involved in discussions at 0.02% lead in brasses. So I think, when we're making an investment like this, we might want to get a little bit more conservative in what we allow. As most of you are probably aware, I'm working pretty heavily in Flint. And one of my recommendations in Flint is that they should replace all existing brass materials with zero lead, basically, as low a lead as they can get, which is the 0.02 at this point in time. So, I think that's a strategy that would be wise for us to take on, too, being the meter is probably the single biggest exposure potential to the user, assuming the meters are not epoxy lined. And I don't know if we're kicking towards that direction. That is kind of a trend in the industry these days, is the epoxy line. So I don't know if you got that far into this evaluation, Crystal, to know if you're going to be looking at epoxy lining or not.
Right, that would be part of the next phase, which is the development of plans and specs for bid packages. So we would certainly, have restrictions on lead content and preferred materials at that point.
Yeah, like I'm saying, I don't necessarily think that the current standards are the ones we should be shooting for. I think we might look at doing better than that, because lower lead brasses are available, but 1/10 of what the current ones are.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I've come across that with pump impellers too.
Exactly the
so,
same.
Yeah, we'll definitely
Exactly
take that into consideration as we develop the plans and specs.
Yeah, and the Romans went upon an approach that the lead pipes work great. Yeah, you got the picture. And it's basically the same thing we did as an industry. The National Lead lobbied in Flint. They actually got an ordinance passed in 1897 to have only lead surface laterals installed in Flint. Then that's National Lead lobbied for that and got it. And the thinking was interesting. The idea was, well, there's so much maintenance involved in external corrosion of surface laterals that we're better off having lead because it doesn't corrode from the outside. Of course, it corrodes from the inside, but that's a different story. So that was the driving force. And, it's that, in my view of engineering is seeing over the hill and around the corner without having to go there. when you do it right. You do it right the first time, and you see the future without having to be in the future to evaluate it or to realize the consequences or the benefits. So, the more we look, you'll be hearing more from me on this issue, obviously, especially about the selection of the alloy for the meters, if we decide to change all the meters. What we already have is what we already have, and they're pretty stable, and our water is excellent in terms of its low corrosivity due to the fact we treat with phosphate. So, but the new ones are a different cat because they haven't had the benefit of having our phosphate for years and years and years. Okay, any questions from the public?
We have 2 public comments. The first one is Roger Roberts. Mr. Roberts, please.
Good morning.
Good morning, Roger.
Interesting discussion, and especially the lead issue and other concerns. I would hope that in your next presentation, it will also include a public outreach and communication strategy, which is going to be very important because of the pushback that was also mentioned by Jack. So I think that should be an important part of the future discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you. Mr. Larry Minikis, please, and then Ed Jamison.
Good morning. I guess it's no surprises to those of us who are speaking this morning. One thing that came up is we're talking 14 to 15 years to recapture the initial investment. But my question is, do these things need to be replaced after so many years? And is that being built into the calculation? In other words, after 10 years, do you need to go back and then upgrade them in some way? And I wrote down, who's going to pay the $20 million, but it sounds like you're looking for grants. Will there be some cost passed on to the ratepayer? And I think that's what they're going to want to know. The RFI issue should be rather minor because with PG&E, these things are attached to your home. So you have your gas meter and you have your electric meter right against your home. Water meters are not near most homes, and in many cases they're on the street. So that should really be a minor issue. I just want to say from personal experience with flume, it's not always a long-term leak. Sometimes it's operator error and you forgot to turn off the hose nozzle all the way, which I did. I've had 2 of those. So there's these smaller incremental savings that I think will really, really add up. And I'm curious as how these are going to be installed. Apparently it's mechanical. It's not like a flume where you attach it to the outside. You're literally going to have to go in there and go into each lateral, and I guess put a device on the lateral, if I understand it correctly. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Well, Larry, it is similar to flume in the sense that a device is installed on each meter, just like flume. So it's a very similar analogy to flume. And you want to pick up the rest of the answers, Ben, or you want me to take a shot at them?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, what I was going to say is, yes, there's going to be a cost, Larry.
Right.
It's a capital investment, and you don't get something for nothing. And they do wear out. I don't know, Crystal, or what are we running 20 years now for replacement, something like that?
Meters, yeah, I believe it's 20 years is our replacement.
Yeah, so there is maintenance on these things. They have batteries.
Right, and that's similar. We have a cyclical replacement program for our current analog meters. So that's really won't be that different. The battery replacement for sure is the kind of ongoing additional maintenance costs. In a way, you have battery replacement instead of meter reading, if you think about the long-term costs.
But it's 1/12 or something like that. In the staff report, if you take a look at it, Larry, you'll see that it says once a year they're going to send someone out to each meter and take a look at it to check the battery and so forth. So there are ongoing maintenances, and I mean, in my thinking, this is just the only way to go. This is like going from horse and buggy to automobiles. You know, this is a major upgrade of technology.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's something that has to happen. I mean, it's the 21st century and we're still
Exactly.
right. Yeah. Thank you.
Exactly, Larry. That's exactly right. That, you know, it's like using a manual typewriter when electric typewriters are available. It's like, what? You know,
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And that's what the public needs to understand. You know, you're going to have
Sure.
the same people coming out, tinfoil people who are worried about, you know, radiation from all these things. It's going to be the same story. Or people who are worried that they're going to get their meters, their water cut off if they're using too much water. So this is probably the major concern. Not to take too much time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Larry.
We have one more speaker, Ed Jameson. Mr. Jameson, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Loud and clear, Ed.
Thank you. I'm going to start kind of echoing Mr. Minicke's. I'd like to comment that I hope the AMI financial analysis includes realistic estimates of likely equipment life and maintenance costs. I'm told by someone at East Bay Mud that they have to replace their AMI devices every 6 to 7 years on average, and that the normal maintenance costs are significant. I'd like to suggest get any such relevant info from East Bay Mud. And I'd also comment, no real business would pursue a project with a 14 to 15-year payback. I hope our AMI financial analysis will take into account realistic replacement life for the equipment and maintenance costs. And finally, I think the so-called privacy issue has to do with Big Brother concerns. I'm sorry if this echoes. Thank you.
Thank you. And one more speaker, Jennifer Omara.
Hi, I just have a couple questions and one comment. One comment on the 14 to 15-year payback. I agree with the two prior speakers. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to go that far out, too much unknowns and a lot of issues on, it's new technology. You can probably replace it in 7 years, really. The other two questions. One, is this for residential only or commercial buildings being included? It just seems like there's been a historical focus on residential or landscape, but not commercial.
Both.
Okay. And then the other question is, do we have a drip detector or leak detector on our main system, not the end users, but just Marin Water's main system? I know that there's some Israeli companies that are really good at this. It just seems like we have so many leaks in the system that are bigger targets and would be some pretty big paybacks if we had those. I didn't know if we looked at those as well.
Well, we do have a leak detection program where we monitor our entire system on some frequency with acoustic detectors, which is industry standard. That said, we are looking to have an effort to ensure that we can take advantage of new technologies, because there is newer technologies all the time. But what we do have a program, and we get out there and we look for leaks, identify them, and repair them.
Yeah, because that just seems like there's a huge return on water, which is the big issue right now. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, the technology is not that new. I mean, these things have been around for 20 years. It's new to us, but it's surely not new to the industry. And it's pretty well stabilized. Each of the vendors has their own niche, as was being discussed earlier by Kristen, by Crystal, they set themselves aside by doing certain things in their competitiveness.
There are no further speakers.
Okay. So Ben, I think we had good comments there. Too bad we didn't have more, but and I would recommend that folks don't get hung up on the 14-year return on investment. That's really not the purpose of these meters. That's just a benefit. You think of it as icing on the cake. The real value is upgrading the meters, number one, taking old and making new. And two, it is in streamlining the district in the long run to reduce labor costs for reading and things like that, and using people for more interesting and less more meaningful work than just going out and looking at the readout of the meter, and having red meters for numerous summers for LA Water and Power, both electric and power meters, both electric and water meters. You know, it's not a terribly fulfilling job between the dog bites and the other hassles. It's a high level interaction with the public that is both good and bad for everybody. People see the reader as somebody to bark at, as well as somebody that is doing a beneficial service. So it's a kind of an interesting environment. I think the sooner we move to a more electronic means, the better off we'll be. Okay, with that, being we don't have a quorum, we're not going to have the closed session, so we're going to adjourn this meeting. And
so Director Russell, we'll move the closed session to Tuesday.
Sure.
It looks like the Tuesday meeting will not be extensive, so we'll plan for following that meeting.
Yeah, and let's plan for that. Let's get that idea of the communication strategy laid out in the near future here. You know, as soon as we see the goal line of when we might start this, one of the questions that hit me when Kristen was talking was that, or maybe it was Alicia, that these grants often have deadlines, and you know, I don't know how long they allow us to match the funds, or if that's just something along the life of the grant, or how long the grant would be. Is it like to be 3 years or 1 year? You know, so we need to kind of start integrating that information into our strategy.
Absolutely. Okay.
Okay. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.